This always happens. Here I am, trying to wrap up my year and finalize my best of nominees with our calendar fully booked until January, and Sonos goes and surprises us by sending their long-awaited update to the Arc. And yeah, no way I'm making you all wait for it this time. Now, we still have the original Sonos Arc, so I was able to do quite a bit of head-to-head testing between the OG and the new Arc Ultra, which is a 9.1.4 Dolby Atmos capable soundbar. On the surface, the two bars look pretty similar. You still have your choice of two finishes, matte black or white. However, the newer Ultra is shaped a little bit differently and weighs less than the original. Now, inside the Arc Ultra, the first update we see is the inclusion of 3 additional drivers, bringing its total to 14, whereas the OG Arc had 11. Powered by 15 internal amplifiers, the Ultra's drivers are split into 7 Silk Dome tweeters, 6 mid-range drivers, and a new sound motion woofer, which is Sonos' new driver design that extends the Ultra's bass response and, according to Sonos, doubles the Ultra's bass output compared to the original. And like the original Arc, you can expand the Ultra by adding 2 of Sonos' Era speakers for surround sound and up to 2 subwoofers to give you more bass. Similar to the original, the Ultra input options are still pretty limited. You get HDMI with ARC, eARC, and Ethernet. And while there is a way to use an optical input, you do have to use an adapter that is sold separately and works more in conjunction with your TV than the bar itself. Since the original Arc was limited in terms of physical connections to make setup as simple as possible, I'm not really surprised to see it again here in the Ultra. As for wireless options, the Ultra has Wi-Fi and AirPlay 2, plus Sonos adds Bluetooth 5.3, something that was missing from the original Arc. Of course, you can interact with a host of streaming music services such as Tidal and even Apple Music natively inside the Sonos app. You can use Sonos' voice control or third-party services like Alexa or Google Assistant for even more control flexibility. Once you have your Ultra connected, setup of the bar itself is done inside the Sonos app. Speaking of the app, Sonos has been in the news a lot this year, and at the center of it all was that app. I'm not going to rehash what went down. Suffice to say, I understand if you may be weary about buying into an ecosystem whose functionality is primarily dictated by an app, especially after the almost complete failure of Sonos' app earlier this year. And while I may not be able to change your mind or convince you to give Sonos another shot, I can tell you that during our testing, the Sonos app worked flawlessly and allowed for easy setup of the Arc Ultra and other Sonos speakers. As for streaming music with the app, I had no issues with Apple Music or Tidal. With all of your speakers set up inside the app, it's going to prompt you to run the TruePlay room correction. Now, using the mic on your phone, the app walks you through the 90-second process of tuning all of your connected Sonos speakers. In my case, that was an Arc Ultra, 2 Era 300s, and 2 Sonos Subs, and it's going to tune them to each other and then to your room. And when it comes to auto room calibration, TruePlay is just so simple and easy to use. In my honest opinion, it is the gold standard. If other home theater manufacturers want to capture that, all-important younger demographic and finally compete with soundbars, they're going to need to find a way to replicate this experience and quick. While the before and after results of TruePlay are more subtle than transformative, I always preferred the Arc sound after running TruePlay. Now, before I get into the sound of the full Sonos system, I want to talk about the sound of the Ultra bar all on its own. Directly compared to the original, 2 things about the Ultra's performance are immediately noticeable. It plays deeper and in a far more linear and neutral fashion, and overall, the bar is just less peaky in the bass and treble. The Arc Ultra sounds more balanced from top to bottom, with smoother transitions as you move from the bass to the mid-range on up to the treble. It is a far more neutral bar, so it will pair well with an even wider range of music and movies. There's a more gradual and smooth upper mid-range and treble roll-off, making the Ultra better at playing back at those higher volumes too. And the measurements more than confirm my subjective listening test. Head-to-head, it's clear how the Ultra maintains a more neutral or linear response from top to bottom. We can see that at the listening position and near field, the Ultra's bass extends just a bit more than the original Arc. The upper mid-range and treble aren't as boosted or as energetic, resulting in an overall response that's going to sound more neutral and balanced. And the Ultra can play back 40 Hz audio at in-room volumes exceeding 75 dB, with 35 Hz still audible, albeit around 3 to 5 decibels lower. So for some listeners, particularly those of you with smaller rooms. A subwoofer may not be necessary. And considering the Ultra soundbar costs just under $1,000, it's a great choice for people on a budget or those with limited space but still want a fantastic sounding home theater system. Unlike ultra expensive soundbars like the Nakamichi Dragon, the Ultra delivers on its promises. But if you want more from the bar, you can adjust the bass and treble using tone control options inside the app. But even out of the box, the Ultra is one hell of a balanced soundbar. I listen to a lot of music using Tidal from inside the Sonos app. Everything from rock bands like A Perfect Circle to the Lastlings electronic pop to jazz artists like Lady Blackbird all sounded real good. There are no musical genre limitations here. The Ultra's overall tone, detail, and control, those were on par with many loudspeakers within its price bracket. Keep in mind, we are still talking about the bar by itself. It is not able to keep pace with a traditional pair of stereo speakers in the imaging department. Of course, this only applies to listening to music and is easy to explain. Traditional stereo tracks through a soundbar are going to be more center focused, so traditional stereo imaging is just easier to achieve when you can place some separation between the speakers. Since a soundbar is going to be limited by its physical boundaries, it's difficult for imaging to extend more than, say, a foot or two beyond the bar. Now, this isn't a deal breaker for me, especially if we're talking about casual or background music listening. However, for more critical listening, I can see how a single Arc Ultra may not convince every hi-fi enthusiast to make the leap and ditch their traditional stereo speakers for a soundbar. But stay with me. When I shift my musical selections from strict stereo mixes to newer music or recordings mastered in Atmos, the experience with the Ultra changes significantly. With no need for adjustments, Atmos mixed tracks like Unholy reveal the true potential of this bar, creating a near 360-degree sound experience. The bass is strong but not overwhelming, maintaining quality at levels up to 85 to 90 dB in room. Now, beyond this volume, Sonos, similar to B&O, may be activating a limiter to prevent distortion or clipping. And I feel the same for movies. On its own, the Ultra recreated enough of that cinematic gravitas during the fight between Deadpool and Wolverine that just, the scale, dimension, and depth of the Ultra's sound was just impressive. The intelligibility also outstanding, even without the Ultra's new adjustable speech enhancements enabled. And this is noteworthy considering that Deadpool wears a full face mask and talks while fighting through just absolute chaos. Ryan Reynolds is still super easy to understand. While the Ultra fell short in terms of deep bass extension and intense dynamics, it's actually a toss-up if the end user will necessarily consider this a drawback, because not everyone is seeking that kind of experience or even wants it for themselves after trying it. And real quick, going back to the now adjustable speech enhancement feature, the Ultra gives you 3 settings of dialogue adjustment. On the first gen Arc, you simply had the option to turn dialogue on or off. Now you have low, medium, and a high setting. Now, in my testing, low was almost too subtle to register. Medium, great middle ground, with the high setting being a near facsimile to the original's just on setting. I found the Ultra to be intelligible all on its own, but if you need a little help in that department, you now have options. But there is a way to unlock an even better experience. If you already own, say, Era 100s, or you want that full Atmos experience because you got Era 300s and you own a sub, or you have the budget to add them, prepare to have to spend at least double the roughly $2,500 cost of like a fully kitted out Sonos system if you want to better what Sonos has brought to market here. Watching some of my go-to scenes from Deadpool, Wolverine, Top Gun Maverick, and Ambulance was so good and so immersive on the Ultra, a pair of Era 300s and a Sonos subwoofer. We actually have both the new Gen 4 and older Gen 3 sub, by the way, that it would take a system anchored by something like the SVS Titans and the SB17 subwoofer, paired with a capable receiver for me to even consider a traditional home theater setup over something like the all Sonos system in 2024. I will admit, SVS's big boy SB17 is the better subwoofer, and my Titans, they hit those dynamic snaps with the authority of an angry ruler-wielding nun. But between the goalpost and at volumes with peaks hitting around 90 to maybe 95 dB in room, the Sonos Arc Ultra surround sound system left me wanting for absolutely nothing. What was even more surprising was that the Era 300s did a better job at creating a larger and just more spacious surround sound soundstage than our overhead Klipsch in-ceiling speakers, a demo I was able to carry out using the Sonos amp, which I used to power our rear in-ceiling speakers paired to the Ultra in lieu of the Era 300s. In fact, using the Era 300s with the Ultra did a fantastic job placing sounds overhead, and I'm talking far out to the sides, something I experienced watching movies and while listening to the song Unholy. I'm not sure that song has ever sounded better in our room than it did through the Sonos system. And real quick, Sonos' new Sub Gen 4 is excellent, and in my opinion, is a bit of an improvement over the outgoing Gen 3. Physically, the two subs look almost identical. They are the same size, even though the older sub is heavier. The 4 comes in a matte black instead of the 3's glossy finish. Now, the 4 sounds a little less boomy. It handles extreme volumes better and has a smoother roll-off as you reach its limits, which in our room proved to be around 25 Hz at reference volumes between 75 and 80 dB. For comparison's sake, that's more or less on par with SVS's $700 small and super stylish Micro 3000, and it is demonstrably better than Nakamichi's quote, new and improved subwoofers, which cost more than $1,000 each. And while we're on the topic of subs, you can add 2 subwoofers to the Ultra, whether that's 2 of the new Gen 4s or 2 Gen 3s or 1 of each. TruePlay does a great job balancing the bass between them so that everyone is going to enjoy maximum impact. 1 sub is enough, but 2 takes the entire system to another level. As pleased as I am with the new Arc Ultra on its own, there are a few things I hope to see in future iterations or maybe tackled in a firmware update. First up, I would like to see an additional HDMI port. I get that Sonos is trying to keep things simple, but having another HDMI input or 2 would make adding things like a streamer, a gaming console, or Blu-ray player a lot more convenient rather than force customers to run additional HDMI cables to their TV. Since some users may need the optical audio adapter, I'd like to see Sonos include one in the box, to avoid any unforeseen headaches for first-time users or those who they just may be a little bit light on funds and unable to upgrade their TV along with purchasing a new soundbar. Also, and this is nothing new, it would be nice if Sonos products could, see DTS signals the same way they do Dolby. There are only a few products that come close to what the Sonos Ultra system can do. 2 of them just so happen to be the ones I know you're going to ask about most. So, leading off with the GOAT, the Q990D from Samsung. It is still the best value when it comes to soundbars, for a little more than the cost of the Sonos Ultra on its own. In other words, with no additional Sonos components, the Samsung delivers a great user experience while also providing you with a full surround sound Dolby Atmos system. If your budget tops out at what the Samsung will run you, the Q990D is still the way to go. However, when comparing the bars, the Ultra is the better sounding and just more full range bar. If you can spring for the extras, I'm talking a pair of Sonos Era 300s and a Sub Gen 4, the full Sonos experience monsters the Samsung. It ain't even close. Now, one of my favorite products in 2024 is the Sony Bravia Theater Quad. When paired with the no, it's not optional, people, Sony SW5 subwoofer, a complete Sonos system costs about the same. Head to head, the Sony is better in one area that likely matters most to audiophiles, and that is stereo listening. Unlike the single bar Ultra, the quad system uses 4 separate loudspeakers. The stereo separation you get with individual speakers is hard to beat when delivering a more traditional hi-fi experience. Aside from the quad's music listening experience and its additional input-output options, which are a total bonus, don't hate me, I prefer the overall neutral tone and tuning of the full Arc Ultra system. Even saying that, some of you may still favor Sony's more dynamic and treble-leaning sound. But beyond their differences in sound, the Sonos kitted-out system is just more flexible than the Quad's closed one, which, by the way, is still limited to a single subwoofer. Not only can you expand the Ultra, but you can pair and unpair the Sonos surrounds and sub from the bar if you want to use them somewhere else in your home later, and it's really hard to kind of ignore that level of convenience. And one thing I will advocate for is going ahead and adding a second sub to your Sonos system if your budget and your room allow. With 2 subs, it's not even a fair contest. The Sony SW5 just can't keep pace with 2 Sonos subs. The Quad, don't get me wrong, it is a phenomenal home theater alternative, but considering these systems fully kitted out, are roughly the same price. The Sonos is, man, they're that team that just always nails that buzzer beater to win the game. But I'm sure a lot of you are here to learn whether you should upgrade your original Arc to the Ultra. Look, if you already own the original Arc and it's still working for you, please do not stress yourself out and succumb to FOMO. You still have a damn good soundbar. Now, with that out of the way, the Ultra is the better and more flexible solution. So if you've skipped to this section and you are wondering what makes the Ultra better and more flexible, surprise, you're going to have to actually watch the video. And as for how the Sonos system stacks up against other bars, I think the writing is on the wall. The complete Sonos Arc Ultra system is nicer, more functional, more compact, cheaper, and still better than the Dragon, with or without its new but still can't do shit subwoofers. Even the Bose Ultra Bar, which I love and I know still holds Christie's intelligibility crown. Even that's outgunned by the new Ultra. And if we're building a full Bose soundbar home theater, the Sonos destroys it. Bose surrounds just can't compete against a pair of Era 300s. And you already know that I am not about to recommend AWOL's new Thunderbeat because it doesn't live up to its own hype. And I can't really comment on Sennheiser because it's just been too long. So, unless you have the space and even the funds to invest close to, I'm going to say $5,000 for a traditional home theater system, I don't think you can outright beat what Sonos has brought to market here. So that's it. That is now my take on Sonos's brand new Arc Ultra soundbar and a little bit of the Sub Gen 4 as well as the complete Sonos surround system. What did you guys think? Do you think I'm crazy for thinking that this can outperform home theaters in and around its price point, that you'd have to probably spend upwards of, I don't know, $5,000 to just outright beat it? I want to know, so sound off down below if you have any questions, or maybe I missed a comparison that you would also like me to touch upon. Feel free to also leave that down below because you never know, could end up in next week's Unplugged where we find out what Christy thinks of the new Sonos system. Until then, if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Go ahead and ring that bell so that you're notified when new videos come out. If you use any of the links that Christy's left for you down below, that's a great way that you've shown your support for this channel and the work that we both do here. And both of us thank you all very much for doing that. Follow me on Instagram at RecoveringAudiophile, and that is it for me today. So remember, the only person who has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.